I have a notebook, thankfully, with several video topics, ideas that I want to cover, things that I want to talk about, things that I want to share with the audience. The topic of this podcast is not among them. The topic, of course, as you can tell from the title, is Ebola. Now, to be fair, giving credit where credit is due, on here in my circle, my Google circle, Josh Galt was the first person to correctly and adequately address the threat of this hemorrhagic fever, Ebola. And he brought up a lot of points which inspired me to do some additional research. It inspired me to keep looking at the facts, at the data, at the reports. And for me, to this point, Ebola was a tricky one. When I think of Ebola, for some reason, I can't separate the current hemorrhagic fever from that movie Outbreak starring Dustin Hoffman, you know? And, I just think of a person bleeding out the pores of their skin. And just this terrible reaction that the human immunity just attacks itself when it tries to combat this fever that hits it all at once. So more data was needed. I couldn't base how I viewed this issue on a fictional movie, because things change. And I mean, the kids of the 80s, the kids who grew up in the 80s, born in the 70s, I mean, we had heard of this Ebola there and again, something that occurred in a faraway land from people who did voodoo and shit, But I am very fortunate. I am extremely fortunate. My wife is a full RN. She's a full nurse. And she is my foundation. She is my ground. She's the person who brings me back to earth. If you want to know why the Lambdog 76 channel hasn't appeared on Doomsday Preppers, it's because of my lovely wife, who keeps me grounded in reality. And for that, I thank my God every day. I am so blessed to have that. Because I would be the worst among you. I truly would. And anybody that knows me well on here knows that I have that capability. But here's the realities of it. And I encourage everybody that's concerned, deeply concerned about this Ebola thing, which you should be, but you should be concerned about your health in general, not just any sort of an outbreak. Things like hand washing and paying attention to what you do with your hands when you have a cold or somebody around you has your cold. You keep them hands away from your damn 7 holes of your body. It's just a general healthy practice. I'm not talking about being a germaphobe, but I'm talking about having germ awareness. And I'm not saying this is how Ebola spreads, but this is such a funny situation, because you take people who are the no nonsense types, and they're not, we don't need to, everything's fine with this Ebola thing, there's nothing to worry about. Yet when it comes to immigration, they freak out. It's funny the pet sources they have, the pet topics they have. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about reality and facts. And here's some facts from what I've read, and I encourage you to read this yourself. The fatality rate of Ebola has changed. Some very, very smart people have been working at it very, very hard. Unfortunately, the lead researcher for hemorrhagic fever unfortunately had lost his life in this most recent outbreak. But people survive now. It's not that there's a 99.9% fatality rate. It's combatable. And you can't simply look at the metrics of what happens in the Congo and compare it to what happens in the United States. Ebola, in my research, Ebola has always been its own worst enemy. When it was so fatal, the reason why it didn't spread was because it was such a fast burner. It killed the host before it could get too far. You know, a village could be decimated, but it killed its host before its host could transport itself. Or the host was so ill when the symptoms began occurring, they couldn't travel anymore. So it ended up being like a self-limiting situation. But so it is again. Center for Disease Control. Check out their website, cdc.gov, I think it is. And just be very clear and expand your understanding of what this fever is and what it entails and how it's fought and how people are living through it. My wife's concern as a healthcare professional, and this is why I'm making this video, her concern is the reaction that people had to AIDS in the 80s through a lack of understanding. A lack of understanding being a polite term for ignorance. Her concern is there were healthcare professionals in the early 80s that because there was such a limited and a lack of understanding of this AIDS, that people who could otherwise help the situation, who could otherwise fight it and beat the situation, were walking off the job because there was so much fear involved. So please, please, open up your sources that you look at when you're studying things. You know, don't just go to your favorite source of self-fulfilling understandings. Expand it, stretch it out, listen to those alternative sources, and that's for both sides. If you're too convinced that you can beat it, every once in a while, a little Alex Jones can do you some good. That's not meant to be as an endorsement, but damn, the guy sure was right about metadata. You know, and how he reacts to it, or whether or not he profits from it, that's fine. But the SOB was right. All right. Anything you guys have, or any further discussion, I'm all ears. I mean, this is obviously a hot topic, and and I'm not doing it, and I'm not bringing this up in an attempt to increase my own fame or the fame of others. I'm really looking to open up a dialogue and gain a greater understanding of this situation, because I'm invested in the future. And I believe in that future. And I'm invested in the present tense as well. So, hit me up. Here I am. Y'all take care. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Mind your germs. And take that daily dose. Maybe that's the cure for Ebola. A daily dose of lamb dog.